And we're live! Touchdown! Welcome to another edition of RockSim Live. I hope my microphone's working today. It was working last week, but then when I was watching the replay, it didn't sound very well, so hopefully it's picking it up much better today. So this is RockSim Live. We're here to talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, or the Launch Visualizer. So send in those questions right now. We've got the chat going on right here. I have a couple of people in the room so far. We have Alfred Indy from Michigan, and we have Rick DeFosses from New Hampshire, and somebody else, but they didn't put their name in. Okay, well, cool. I'm not seeing all my data here. I'm looking at the chat. Alfred says that the microphone is loud and clear, so thank you, Alfred, for that. So, what are we going to talk about today? Send in your RockSim questions. It's in the chat. We have Rosa here from Ottawa. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Let me go to my computer screen so you can see what's going on. Where am I? Desktop. There it is. All right, so this is the Apogee website. This is where you get RockSim. There's this scrolling banner bar here, and if you click on one of them, here's the RockSim 11. If you click on that, it'll take you to the page where you can order it. But if you scroll down, here's where you can get the free 30-day trial version, so you can check it out. Here's system requirements. Another quick information. Here's the what was in the latest version of 11, which is what we're using. And if you go to the home page and you scroll down just a little bit further to hear this section, free RockSim training every week. If you click on the image, it'll take you to our archive page, and this will tell you what we've talked about in previous episodes. We're on episode 170 today. I thought it was 171. But anyway, according to this, it's 170. Last week we talked about making a square tube fin rocket. And I did put the sample files here on the web page where you can download them, and so you can play around with them yourself if you are interested in making square tube rockets. But also on this page are other topics that we've talked about. You can either scroll through them. If you're looking for something in particular, you can do a Control F on this page, or on the Macintosh it's Command F. And it brings up a little search bar here. And let's see what I'm going to be searching for. Textures. Yeah, so textures are decals to your rocket. And we talked about them 2 times. You can see one of 2. The last time was on July 29th of 2022. And then previous to that, we talked about it in April of 2021. So that's how you find things real quick. I use this feature all the time with my own research when I'm looking for stuff. That's how I find it, so it's really easy to do. We have David Hayes from Davidson, Michigan here, also another Michigander. So we had our first question from Alfred Indy. It was Rick DeFosses. He says, can you show how to determine or where to look for the rate of descent once the drogue is deployed on a dual deployment flight? Okay, so say we're in RockSim, and this is not set up for dual deployment. This is just a single parachute. We can add another parachute. So to change the design, go to the RockSim Design Components tab here at the top. Click on that, and that gives you all the components that are in this rocket. So here's the sustainer, here's the booster section in the sustainer. If we open this up a little bit further, we can see it has a 12-inch parachute. So we'll add a drogue device. Instead of another parachute, let's make it a streamer. So first you got to add the streamer, you got to know what part it's going into. So that's why I clicked on the body tube. And then come over here to the Add New Components section. And we're going to click on a streamer. You could also do a parachute, but we're going to do a streamer just so it comes down a little bit faster. We'll choose a 2-inch by 56-inch Mylar streamer. And so here's the streamer in the rocket. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. Okay, so the streamer right now is this blue color. And let's change the color to, this is the 3D color. Let's make it blue, light blue. And in 2D, let's make it, that's going to be harder. There, we'll make it that color. So there's our streamer. We just changed the color a little bit. So, okay, so right now we can see we've got a streamer and it's got a coefficient drag of 0.08, which is pretty low, and streamers come down pretty fast. Let's make it a little bit thicker, and that changes the mass of the streamer. We can change the length. Let's make it 36 inches long. Make it a little shorter. And let's move it from like right here, because you can see that it's interfering with the shoulder on the nose cone. We're going to go up here to the location, and we're just going to slide it back somewhere. It could be in the same spot as the parachute, because they can kind of nest with each other. And then we'll say OK. So now we have 2 recovery devices in this rocket, so it is technically we can do dual deployment. So to do that, we need to look at what engines we've got. So in previous simulations, we did a B66 to a B44. Here's a C60 to a C67. I like that one. So we're going to run this simulation again. To run it again, even though the engines aren't loaded, click up here to either load engines or edit. The difference is when you go to edit, it also changes whatever flight parameters you had that day, like the wind speed and the altitude. If you just load engines, it's just going to load them, but it's not going to change whatever the default launch conditions are, so you have to manually change those. So I'm also going to go to prepare for launch. You can see it's already loaded those 2 engines in here, the C67 in the upper stage and then in the lower stage, and you can tell that by this icon right here. This is the booster stage. It's got a C60. Under the starting state, we're going to be on a 36-inch launch rod. We're going to launch straight up. Launch conditions, we're at an altitude of 700 feet above sea level, and we got a 5-mile-an-hour wind blowing across our field. And let's see the flight profile on this rocket. And the rocket takes off, and it ran the simulation. I'm going to peek behind here to see what our altitude is. So we're at 1,558 feet. The previous one was 1,561, and the difference is that it has different launch conditions. So different wind speeds are going to give you different launch conditions when the rocket takes off. So that's why, I mentioned that when you load engines versus edit engines, it's going to make a difference, and you're going to see it in the flight profiles. All right. We have Ron's rockets. He says, greetings. And Alfred Indy is talking to David Hayes, and he says, are you going to launch on Saturday? And I assume that Alfred is going. I'm going to be going to ours on Saturday. Hopefully it's going to be hot. It's just about summertime, and it's already hot. Okay, so here's our rocket sitting on the pad, and when we launch it, rocket takes off, fire and smoke is coming out. It's getting to the top. The booster stage is dropped and is coming down right down here. Okay, so here's our streamer coming out of the rocket, and it's falling down. And I don't remember what we set up for the deployment altitude. I guess we didn't because it's a streamer all the way down. Okay, so let's do that again. Set it up for dual deployment. Okay, what did we miss? Okay, so let's go back to prepare for launch. What we missed was the flight events tab. So we had the streamer 12. Okay, so this first one is the 12-inch diameter parachute, and it's also deploying a maximum injection delay. And the streamer is also deploying a maximum ejection delay. So RockSim just picked one, and it picked the streamer. So let's do this over again. So the streamer we want at maximum ejection delay, and then the parachute we want to deploy at an altitude, and we went 1,500 feet, so we can, at an altitude, we can deploy at anything under 1,500 feet. Let's try about 300 feet above the ground. And let's do that flight profile again. Just want to verify that we have everything set up first before we go looking for numbers. So I always look at the flight profile. It's like the greatest thing. Okay, so the rocket takes off, and it's coming over. There's our streamer. All right, so when it gets down to 300 feet, and so you're looking down here at the altitude, the parachute should come out. Okay, 600 feet, 500 feet, 400 feet, and 300 feet. And then the parachute came out. So you can see it changed to a parachute, and it's going to land. Okay, so we have dual deployment set up. That's the way you would set it up. You can use streamers or parachutes. It's up to you. RockSim doesn't care. Okay, so there's a number of places where you can find the descent rate of the streamer or the drogue device. In our case, it's a streamer. So the first place is you can do it right here on this screen. Okay, so on this screen, there's a button down here in the bottom corner. Make sure you can see it. Okay, so you can see it. No, you can't see it. My screen is too big. Okay, so see that button called Details? We want to click on that. And when we click on that, it's going to bring up all kinds of information about the flight. So now we're looking for any information when it's descending on the drogue chute or the drogue streamer. So anywhere in here, I want to know the speed of the rocket as it's coming down. So I can look at these numbers right here. So right now, I'm looking at the velocity, and its current velocity is 32.249 miles per hour. And if I go back a little bit in time, a little bit further, it's roughly the same. The wind is causing a little bit of variability, but it's roughly 32.4 miles per hour. And it's dropping a little bit. It's getting to its terminal velocity. It just has to fall far enough. Okay, so now watch that number here when it changes from a streamer to a parachute. Boom. So now our velocity is 12.22 miles per hour. So it changed. So during this descent, we were at 32.3, 32.4, somewhere in that range, miles per hour as it's coming down. So that's the first place that you can find the speed under the drogue. All right, so the next place is you can find it. Let's see if we double click on this. Okay, so when you double click on a simulation, I don't know if it's going to be here or not, but we'll take a look. Okay, so this is the detailed flight report, and this gives you more information than just these columns right here. For example, our launch conditions, our altitude was 700 feet above sea level, tells us the relative humidity and the pressure and the wind speed. So now we're looking for recovery system data. So this section right here, so the first device is a 12-inch parachute that it's showing, and it's showing that it was deployed at 37.334 seconds into the flight. And when it was deployed, it was at 32.04 miles per hour. So remember, that was our descent speed of our streamer at that point. And it also tells the altitude and where it was at range, how far upwind it was. Now the streamer was deployed at 10 seconds, so it was actually, ahead of the parachute. And the velocity of the rocket when it was deployed was at 37 miles per hour. So it was moving pretty slow, almost similar speed. And it's pure coincidence. It was arcing over the top, and it was just starting to come down when that streamer popped out. And when it popped out, it was going 35 miles an hour. And the altitude at that point was 1,537 feet, and it was upwind 537 feet. So here's the second point where you can get your drogue parachute speed, and that's the velocity right before your main parachute comes out. So that would be, this is our main parachute, and that velocity right there is your drogue descent rate. Okay, so that's the second place you can find it, and there's one other place, and that's in the graphs. So here's our graph right here. So we're going to click on that, and it brings up this screen, and what we're looking for is velocity, and we're going to graph it from a time of 0 to the end of the data. Hit plot graph. Okay, so we're looking at this orange line. So here's velocity. So the peak velocity was somewhere up here around 270 miles an hour. So that's the burnout speed. And then at Apogee, which is this blue vertical line here, the rocket was going its slowest, about 30-something miles per hour. And it started picking up speed because it was coming over the top. So that's why at this point the graph curves upwards, and then pops, the streamer pops out, and it immediately slows down, but then it starts speeding up again as it's trying to hit its terminal velocity. So this flat line right here, so anywhere along that flat line, if you extend it over to this, to the velocity, it was around, what did we say, about 32.1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on where on the line you are. So that is the third spot where you can find your velocity of the drogue device. And then our parachute, its velocity is down here. You can see we were falling, at 32 miles an hour, and then it parachute opened, and then it stabilized around 12 miles an hour. So that's how you would find your drogue velocity. Hopefully that answered your question. That was a lot of information there. All right, there's no more questions. Come on, give me your questions. Okay, so what am I going to do next then? I want to switch screens here just a second. And I want to open up something else here. I want to open up my list of changes. My programmer has been giving me changes to RockSim. We got a new version, and he's given me this version to test, and that's exactly what I'm running today. So you're seeing me test the next version of RockSim. It's a bug fix version, so what we're doing is RockSim is running fine, but there are some bugs in here that we want to fix, and so he's given me a list, and so I'm looking at my list over here while I'm waiting for your questions. Come on, fire off those questions. And so what can I look at? So I'm actually beta testing So one of them was a crash issue. So every time we do RockSim Live, it always crashes on us. And so he seems to fixed a bunch of crashes. So there was 3 crashes that he fixed. So hopefully that catches them all. In RockSim, he fixed the external pod radial angle dial. I have to check that one out. Custom fins are having a gap in a 2D drawing and a 3D view. Okay, so, and that's on pods. Fins on pods. Looks like he did a lot of stuff on the pods. Export button creates an HTML document that has no formatting. I'm trying to remember what the export button creates an HTML document that has no formatting. He fixed issues with parachute streamers and the flame and the 2D flight profile screen. So what was that? Okay, so we just ran this simulation and we looked at it in the 2D flight profile. And one of the things that's been a bug, and he says he's fixed it, is this little image right here. So let's check that to see if he's got it fixed. So right now it's just a generic 2-stage rocket, and if we want to use our rocket in RockSim, we go to rocket image, and we check this box that says use the current design, and we need to generate what they're called sprites, and so we need to give it a name, and this is a Dazzle. The rocket kit that I've been playing with are called a Razzle Dazzle, so I'm going to give it the name Dazzle, and I'm going to choose a path where these are going to be stored, and I'm going to create a new folder, Dazzle Sprites. I'll create it and say open. And then we need to give an image size, and I think the maximum is 256. And we're going to generate the image. So what it's doing now is generating an image of this Razzle Dazzle rocket. So there's the first stage. There's the second stage attached. Okay, so this is a flame coming off the first stage. That's a flame coming off the second stage. I don't know, the flame is way out there. That's weird. Okay, this is the booster stage tumbling down. And the booster stage is going around and round and round several times. Okay, there's the upper stage with a parachute. There's the upper stage with the streamer. So the reason the rocket is so small is because our streamer is so long. All right, so then we click OK. And then it reloads the sprites. So there's the rocket sitting on the pad. And it takes off. And the flame is in the wrong spot. But there's the booster stage falling down. And there's the rocket. And the streamer pops out. And the parachute pops out and the rocket comes down. All right, so it's working better than it was. I'm not sure if it's totally fixed. I don't want to have a lot of effort put into this because what we want is for people to upgrade to RockSim Pro. And in RockSim Pro, this is generated automatically. Let me open up RockSim Pro. And I'll open up this Razzle Dazzle 2-stage rocket as soon as it opens up. We got another question. It says, Alfred Indy says, getting RockSim to display and adjust on Windows 11. Anyone else having problems getting the bottom rocket display to adjust the size of the display blocks? I cannot get it to shrink or enlarge. Okay, so on Windows, I'm not on Windows, I'm on a Mac. One thing that Windows, instead of having the minimize and those buttons on this side, they're on this side. what you need to do is to like grab the upper corner, shrink it down, then move it up, and then grab this bottom edge, and now you can move it up and down. And if you move it all the way to the top, and then you can, get it to the bottom so you can see the bottom. And once you see the bottom, and you've got the top all the way at the top and the bottom all the way at the bottom, that's as big as it's going to be. And at that point, you can adjust this right here, this screen. What you do is you move your cursor up and down, and you can see where it blips, where it changes shape. When it changes shape right there, you click and drag, and you can click and drag up or down, and you can only go up so high, and that has to do with the underlying software that RockSim is built on, the graphics engine. We can't make that screen any bigger than that, but if you have a rocket in there, let's open up the Razzle Dazzle. Razzle Dazzle rocket. Open that up. Okay, so there's the Razzle Dazzle. So if you want this bigger, what you do is on the Mac, it's over here on the left side. On Windows, the button's over here on the right. And you click that button, and it detaches the screen from the main screen. And then you can make that screen bigger so you can see your rocket. Now, if you have multiple monitors, you can actually take the one screen and move it off to the side, and you could be working on it on a different screen so it's nice and big. I find that helpful. So that is the Razzle Dazzle and how you adjust the screen. To get the screen back to where it was before, just click and drag, and then when you get down to the bottom, it should pop up. And if it doesn't, what you can do is go to the View menu and click on Restore Window Default, and it will reattach this screen to that screen, just like that. Ron's Rocket says, I plan to attend the first part of NARAM. Are you attending the manufacturer's forum? Probably. I'll be here. It's like right in our backyard. No reason why I shouldn't be. I think we've already got our hotel reservations. We did that early because they fill up fast. So if you don't have your hotel reservations yet, go ahead and get them. Terry Wheelock says, design an octagon tube fin rocket. Well, we did the square yesterday. An octagon is basically the same process. If nobody else comes up with another question, we'll answer that one. But what I wanted to show you is on RockSim Pro, it automatically generates the image of the rocket. So let me choose engines here. What am I looking at? Show all engines. Why is it only showing some? Show all engines. There we go. Cicerone, Aerotech. Oh, now we want to go by this that match the motor mount diameter. Why am I not seeing Estes engines? Type filter, single use. There they are. For some reason, these Estes motors weren't designated. That's weird. All right, so there's the Estes engines. You gotta just kind of play with these drop downs to get the engines to show up, apparently. C60, click OK, and load all. So it loaded the C60 in both stages. The upper stage, which is this one right here, I'm going to change that to a C67. Come on. Okay, flight events. This is staging. Let's go maximum ejection delay. And we'll get rid of that line right there by hitting the delete button. Okay, so this one doesn't have the streamer in it. We only have the parachute. And it will be deployed at maximum ejection delay, which is 7 seconds. Our starting state, we're on a launch rail. Let's change it to a launch rod. That's 36 inches long. Azimuth angle is aimed to the east. We'll tilt it a little bit. Simulation controls, just leave that alone. Launch conditions. I'm not sure where this launch site is. Let's choose a launch site. Cloudbusters. This is in western Colorado. And we go to flight profile. And it's going to run the simulation. And it should bring up the launch visualizer. Just running a little slow today. I got to get a faster computer. All right, so there's our rocket. And remember, in RockSim, we had to create all the graphics. In RockSim Pro, it automatically does it for us. You can see it added all the decals onto this rocket. And this is a 2-stage rocket, even though it looks like a single stage right now. When we launch it, so it's launched, and you notice there's the booster stage fell off. Now it's coasting, and we're at 1,400, 1,500 feet, starting to arc over, and our parachute at this point has popped out. Oops, lost the rocket. And there is the rocket right there, oops, in the middle of the screen. And it should be displaying a parachute. And you know, this is fully 3-dimensional, so we can rotate it around and look at it from different angles. Now I'm looking at it from the bottom. There's straight down. Let me zoom out a little bit. I lost the rocket. There it is. And what I wanted to show you was down here at the bottom. This yellow line right here is the booster stage, its trajectory. So as it's coming down, so you can see it right there. And right down here, this view right here is called the mini view. And it just shows our rocket descending. And there's the parachute. So you can see this is the trajectory line of the sustainer. This is the booster, the yellow line. And at 14 seconds, we can continue all the way down to the ground. And now we're at 75 seconds and the rocket has landed. And our booster stage landed over here. And like RockSim, it does have a data column. That's this button right here. And so we can get velocities. So it's got relative velocity and absolute velocity. The absolute velocity is because even though the rocket looks stationary, and right now we're on the ground, but it has a velocity of 1,200 miles per hour. So why does this rocket sitting here resting on the ground have a velocity of 1,200 miles an hour? It's because the Earth is rotating. And that's the rotation speed at that latitude. The relative velocity relative to the surface of the Earth is a velocity of 0 miles per hour. So don't get those confused. Typically you'll use relative velocity, and you can scroll backwards in time. You know, our relative velocity at this point is 34 miles an hour. That seems pretty fast for a parachute coming down. Yeah, I'm just scrubbing through looking at that relative velocity. Well, the relative velocity, okay. This is, we also have wind blowing it this way. And I think that's why our relative velocity is so high. Because not only do we have descent speed, we have wind speed. And those two added together gives us 35 miles an hour. So do we have vertical velocity? We have, oh, look at this, a wind speed of 17 miles an hour. Yeah, the wind is howling. Yeah, we don't have vertical velocity, we just have relative velocity. Okay. All right, so that is the launch visualizer and how to find deployment speed. Let's see if the detailed flight report gives us that same speed. Oh, this is not a dual deployment rocket, but it deployed at 30 miles an hour, but it doesn't tell us I think it does, yeah, successful landing, velocity at landing. Our X velocity was 30 feet per second, so you have to convert that to miles per hour. The Y velocity and the magnitude is 34.99 feet per second. Were we seeing feet per second or miles per hour? Let's see, go to preferences, under units, miles per hour. Thrust to rate ratio of 8.33, which is pretty good. I just want to see that. If I convert everything to miles per hour, see if that changed. Okay, so at this point, the rocket is coming down on the parachute. Where is the rocket? Where's my parachute? We used to have a parachute. What happened to the parachute? Huh, the parachute's not being drawn. Interesting. All right, so I just wanted to look at here. Okay, 24 miles an hour. That's better than 34 or 39, what I was looking at. Okay, let's go over here. Interior wheel axis. Is everyone getting notification about my short videos on rockets? I think UBloob is blocking me. I am not a subscriber to your channel, Terry, so put your channel in there and we'll go take a look. Ron's rocket says, what about the velocity of the solar system traveling through the galaxy? I know. If we're moving through the galaxy, and then the galaxy is moving through the universe, so we got a lot of velocity going on here. But we're only tracking relative to the Earth. We're not going into the moon. All right. Let's close that. All right, so what were we talking about before? Oh, we were looking at our new features. A new feature. Colors and textures added to parachutes and streamers. Ooh. Let's open that up and see what that looks like. Let's get a different rocket here, just to have something different to stare at. Quest Superbird. Save my changes? No. Okay, so there's the Quest Superbird, what it looks like. Let's go to design components, and we have a parachute here. All right, so there is the 2D color is orange. And let's see what happens if we put a texture on this. Let's see what it looks like in 3D, if there's any texture on it. we're not seeing the parachute in 3D here. We need to make this tube translucent, so let's do that first. So that would be, well, where's the parachute? Okay, the parachute is in the bottom tube. So this aft tube, let's make its color translucent so we can see through it. Okay, so this orange cylinder right here is our parachute. And we click OK. And let's go to that parachute again. All right, so now we can see the parachute right there. And let's see if we change the color. It changed it. Okay, so that verifies that is our parachute. Let's go add a texture to it. So a texture is like a decal. And we're talking about textures again. Okay, so I got this parachute image right here. And let me see if I can make this. Okay, so that image is a PNG file, so that's an image, and it looks like a parachute. So let's see what happens when I, ooh, look at that. It put the parachute on there. Interesting, interesting. Let's change some things here. Repeat pattern. Uncheck that. See if that changed anything. No. Flip around the R axis. That didn't do anything. Flip around the S axis. Didn't do much. Prevent seams. Okay, so this time it's just one wrap around the outside of the parachute. It's interesting, right? Kind of cool. Let's click OK. Okay, so let's go back to the tube and change the color, go back and turn off the opacity, so make it a solid tube again. So it hides the parachute, but that's okay. What I want to see is in the 2D flight profile. Okay, so we're going to create a simulation. We're going to do that. We're going to choose an engine. And let's go with a D21-7. Click OK. And I don't remember what we did, but let's just launch it and see what happens. Okay, so first of all, you know, what we have is just the generic rocket right here. And remember, to create sprites, we got to go to the rocket image tab and say use the current rocket design. And this is the Superbird. And we need to create a path for it. Let's create a new folder. Superbird sprites. Create that. Click open, which is underneath down here. All right, and then we're going to give it an image right here and click OK. Oh, I don't think I generated images. Let's try that again. Rocket image. Did I not? Oh, I gotta hit that button here. Generate rocket A. Okay, so there's the rocket. That looks like our rocket. There's the flame. Kind of a weird looking flame. And there's our parachute. Look at that. It added the parachute. It's kind of a weird looking parachute. It didn't wrap the way I was hoping. Okay, so there's the rocket. It takes off. It's going up and pops out its parachute. Let's pause it right there and take a look at this parachute. It's kind of weird looking. So I'm trying to figure out how it wrapped that parachute here around that. Ah, interesting. Well, we do have a parachute with some color on it. Not quite what I was hoping, but it's better than nothing. Interesting. Cool. All right. Okay, so another new says refreshing the flight simulation after refreshing the engine database. I'm not sure what that one. Disable time edit field when start end time is changed in the simulation plots. Okay, so if you, I think he's talking about these values right here. So when it's at the end of the data, you can't change that value there. At the following flight time, we can change it. At time, let's make this 1 second. Plot graph. Okay, so the simulation data starts 1 second and it ends at 15. So that worked. I think that was a little bug that we discovered before at the end of the data. When the rocket reaches peak acceleration. So yeah, so this display right here was apparently active before, but now it's been corrected, so you can't accidentally enter numbers in there. Okay. No more questions? Terry Wheelock says, hey, check it out. What's the channel name? Terry Wheelock says, can RockSim design a rocket on the wing of a rocket plane? Design a rocket on the wing of a rocket plane. Are you talking like a rocket on a B-52? Like a B-52 dropping the next 15? Thinking about that one, Terry. That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever tried it. I don't know. I've been trying to design gliders, and with RockSim, you can't change the angle of attack of any of the wings, so you can't get anything to glide. In RockSim Pro, we can. Let's try something. Okay, we're going to play with. Ron says it looks like an Apogee chute from the distance. Yeah. That parachute design that I showed you, that was one of our old designs. I think that was for the old 24, but we since changed it to a different color. It's just every now and then we like to change things. Okay, let's open up a two-stage rocket like we had before. I'm looking for a two-stage rocket. Okay, so here's a two-stage rocket. And let's change the fins on this one right here. So highlight the fins, go to the Rocket Design Components tab, and it highlights it up here. I'm going to split these fins and to make it 3 fins. So split them, say yes, and what that does is it takes 1 fin and it turns it into 3 fins, so I can adjust each fin by itself. So if I highlight this, it highlights which fin I'm changing. So there's that one. If I click on that one, it's this one. And I bet if I click on the third one, it's the one in the back. All right, so I guess it doesn't really matter Let's go to a 2D view. Okay, so right now this fin is highlighted there. So that one is highlighted, it must be the one behind. And so fin 1 is this top one. So let's edit that. And let's change the radial position. No, we don't want the radial position. We want, oh, we're in RockSim. I can't do this. I gotta be in RockSim Pro. Save your changes, no. Where's RockSim Pro? There's RockSim Pro, and we have a 2-stage rocket here. Okay, so let's go to Rocket Design Components, and here's our upper stage. Let's take our fins right there and split them. Say yes. And I want to go to a 2D view because I want to get the right one. Okay, so this is the upper fin. And this one has 4 fins. Okay, that's even better. So this one, let's open that fin. And let's go to the radial position tab. So on RockSim Pro, we have a radial angle and we also have a fin cant angle. So which fin are we talking about here? So let's first change the radial angle. Okay, so it's a fin back here because I saw one move. All right, so that's radial angle. And if you look at it from the back of the rocket, if I just change the radial angle, you can see what's happening. It's just, it spins it around the body of the rocket. I think we started at 0. Okay. Now if we change the cant angle, watch what that does. You see it right here changing. It's a little hard with all these decals on here. They were meant to be camouflage, and it works pretty good. It does kind of camouflage them. All right, so we've canted that fin, but let's choose 20 degrees. All right, and click OK. Now I want to do the opposite one. So I want this one down here. Not that one, that one. And we want to change its radial angle. So here's, let's look at the rocket. So I want the radial angle to match this fin back here, the first one that we changed. This is my experiment. So if I go 20 degrees, which direction does it go? Okay, so at this point, this is really hard to see. That one is canted to the right. If we spin this one around, it's also canted to the right. So we want it canted to the left. So let's make it a minus 20 degrees. Okay, so now if we look at it, now it looks like we have an angle of attack of 20 degrees. That's exactly what I wanted. Because in order to do a glider, we need both fins canted up, kind of like an elevator on an airplane. And that way we can glide. So let's run a new simulation. Okay, so we have a C67 and a C60. And we were in western Colorado, if I recall correctly. Now let's see what this profile looks like. So I'm kind of sneaking a peek right here. It's not going quite as high, which I kind of expected it wouldn't, because the rocket is probably not going to fly straight. So there's the rocket. Let's go to this view and zoom in. There's the rocket sitting on the pad, and we can spin it around. We can see these top fins are kind of both canted in the same direction. All right, so let's see what that launch is going to look like. Let's zoom out a little bit. Rocket takes off, it wants to arc over. Is it gliding at all? I don't know if it's gliding in at all. I'm going to pause it right there and let's take a look at the trajectory. You notice that trajectory, it didn't go straight, it arced. See that green line is our upper stage, and the trajectory is, it arced that way, it did one of these, which is really cool. Now our booster stage, if you look at that, it is definitely doing something funky once it deployed. It's got a hump, so this one actually did glide. It glided a little bit, and then it decided to just do a nosedive. I was hoping the upper stage would do that. I think at this point the parachute is out. Yeah, so the parachute is out. Let's run the simulation again. This time, let's not deploy any parachute. See what happens. Flight events, 12-inch parachute, never deploy. So either the rocket's going to come crashing in or it's going to do some weird gliding. So let's see what happens when we launch it. Take a sip while it's doing that. Oops, it opened on the wrong side of the screen. Okay, so this one's not in the air nearly as long. It's only in the air 28 seconds versus 75. It's kind of arcing over. It's still like trying to throw out a parachute, but ignore the parachute because the parachute is not deployed. And it's kind of, whoa, it just did a flip right there. Those canted fins did want to make it spin. And now it's spinning the other direction. And then it crashed. So by the time it hit the ground right there, let's zoom out a little bit and see what it looks like. See what that trajectory looked like. Okay, now see that trajectory? That's what I was hoping it would do. And it kind of almost matches the booster stage trajectory. That is awesome. So the booster was gliding a little bit, and now we got the upper stage gliding a little bit, but it's gliding backwards. It's kind of like a canard. Interesting. Sometimes they go in nose first, sometimes they go backwards. Very, very cool. So everybody, I hope you understand what happened there. The rocket took off. It didn't go straight. It kind of pulled up. It kind of did one of these maneuvers. And then it straightened out. And then the parachute did not deploy. The rocket kind of was flying backwards. And then it didn't quite go up again like the booster stage. See, the booster stage actually gained altitude. It came down and then went back up a little bit and then came back down. Where this one, it didn't quite come back up. It just kind of went that way. I wonder if we graph it, if it looks different, if we can see if it actually did go up. So altitude above sea level, let's clear these other ones. Plot the graph. Yeah, I was just seeing if this line went up at any point. It didn't, it almost turned up right there. It didn't quite though, and then it started coming back down. Very cool. All right. Does RockSim show a parasite glider flying in the simulation? that's what I was trying to get at here, Terry. This is kind of like the preliminary steps to designing a glider to put onto a booster. I got to get it to glide first, and then we'll stick it onto a rocket. And this is going to be a very complex design. What I think what we'll need to do is to make it a two-stage rocket. Or you have to think this through, because we need to have the glider separate, and the only way it can separate one of two ways. One is if it's a booster stage or a sustainer, so there's a separation there. And the other way is if it was a pod, because pods can fall off the rocket as well. And we need to trigger it to fall off, but a parasite glider doesn't have a motor in it. So this is one of those, well, we're probably going to have to use a fake motor. And we've talked about fake motors before. And we use a fake motor just to provide a triggering mechanism to say, hey, something's happening, something started. So the fake motor, it doesn't have any thrust, but RockSim thinks that it has an ejection charge, which would kick it off. So that's a new event. That's a good one, Terry. It's something that, I was thinking about. We'll have to think about that one. Okay. I think we're after 3 o'clock. And Terry just got my mind working here, so I'll have to think about that one for next week. We will be back next week. Today is the 14th, so what's that? 7 and 14 is the 21st. So we will be back June 21st. Same time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, or 4 p.m. on the East Coast. Anything else that I can think of? Yeah. So, yeah, like I was showing today, I was beta testing the new version of RockSim. We didn't crash at all, having the software crash on us. Although we did crash a couple of rockets because we took the parachutes out of them. So that's good. So the RockSim didn't crash. That's good. But, using it just for an hour is not enough. We got to play with it more than that. We also showed putting streamer or dual deployment, how to calculate or how to figure out the descent rate while it's under drogue. And then we did textures on streamers and parachutes. And that was interesting. So we can do that. Have to figure out how to make it look better. Or do we really need to? I don't know. You tell me. So thank you again for coming. I hope you have a great week. Alfred Indy says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now go out and crash something. That's probably what we're going to do. Whenever we launch anything, we always crash something. But let's launch something and not crash it. So I'll give you the countdown here, and we'll end the stream. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out and